And the reason why I do that is because someone that plans to do something like this may not confirm that that was what they were planning, but they may just drop off and stop talking to you, which is great because then the problem goes away. I'm going to jump into that salacious headline and provide best practices for tenant screening for this issue in 2025. But first, let me say this. One, yes, this is relevant for people renting 30+ day furnished rentals, and it's not just relevant to short-term rentals. And that's because it is important for all landlords at this point, regardless of what the model of your property is. Two, I'm going to discuss this in the context of Airbnb, but these rules can be carried to other furnished rental platforms. And three, there is a setting on Airbnb that will eliminate this issue, and I'll show you that in a bit. As a note, this is in addition to the supposed language in the site's rules. I haven't looked for this on Airbnb, but it came from the article I was reading about this woman, Lily, who filmed herself having sex in this London property. So the article that we're talking about. And according to the article, the site's rules for house guests ban sex work and the creation of commercial pornography, photos, or videos, as well as disruptive gatherings. However, I've spent a lot of time in the back-end settings of Airbnb, and I've never seen that language, which makes me think that the average host and the average guest does not know about that language. And if you're a content creator that wants to make pornographic or commercial content in the property you are about to rent, you're probably not going to look for that language either, because it's much easier to do something and ask for forgiveness later than it is to ask for permission. So I'm going to show you the setting, but we also need to talk about how to tactfully communicate this to interested Airbnb guests as well. And what I share with you can also apply, or should also apply, to all of the important rules that you have for your property and that you want to confirm that guests have seen. That said, I think it's important to ask yourself a few crucial questions about what you actually care about and what you are comfortable with, because the host reported this about Lily. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Erin Spredlin. I am a midterm rental consultant and author. As a reminder, midterm rentals are just 30+ day furnished properties. So I have written 3 books on midterm rentals. I have been doing midterm rentals myself since 2017. My entire career has been supporting landlord hosts / real estate investors with fewer than 10 properties that want to find tenants and get someone else to pay their mortgage and or supplement their income. So if that sounds like you are in the right place. If you need extra help for your property, I offer consulting for 1 hour, 2 hours, or a hold my hand package. You can find more information for those sessions, book them, pay for them, etc. in the description, and I will also link it as the top comment. Also, if you go to that link, you'll see a section in green. Everything in that green area is free. I'm not going to talk about what it is just because it's going to change quarterly. So if you're watching this in 10 months, it might be different than what it is now. 2, if you learn something while you're watching this video, a like is appreciated. 3rd, I'm about to do a whole refresh on midterm rentals, furnished rentals for 2025. So how to think about the lease, how to think about house rules, how to take payment, Zillow best practices, Furnish Finder best practices, Airbnb best practices. So if that sounds like content you'll need, it might be worth subscribing for. And then 4th and final, I am not a lawyer, accountant, CPA, or insurance broker. Okay, so back to Lily. What might surprise you is that Lily had received a good review from the host before someone found out what she was doing. So this is what the host had to say about her before she got caught. They said, Lily is a lovely guest, keeping to all the house rules, and was a good communicator prior to arrival. So because the host had reported that they felt this way about Lily before they figured out what had happened or before they learned what had happened, I think it's important that future hosts ask themselves questions around what they care about with their potential tenants. And that is because the creator influencer job is here to stay, and a lot of those jobs include sex work. So it's important to be clear with yourself on these questions. Do I care if they make commercial content in my rental? Do I care about some commercial content and not others? So in other words, are you okay with content creators? So for those of you that have a dim view of influencers or content creators, just a reminder that I fall under that category. I make content about real estate, but I'm a content creator. So I have filmed real estate content, real estate education, and put it up on YouTube, and that would constitute commercial. So you need to ask yourself if you're okay with content creators and influencers making videos in your rental and then posting them commercially. And then if you are you just not okay with pornographic material? So are you okay with it or are you not? And then also, what's the line for you as the landlord? Because if it hadn't been filmed, you would never know what happened in that property. And then also asking yourself, what's the line for me? Because if it hadn't been filmed and one of the neighbors hadn't found it, then these hosts would have never known. And if it's not filmed, you never know what the guests are doing inside your property. And then finally, would I be okay with a guest that filmed themselves having sex in the property if they paid their bills on time and were a responsible, quiet tenant? I am not encouraging you to feel one way or the other, but I will say, when you're making decisions, think about the end goal. And for most people, the end goal is getting a responsible paying tenant. And most people, when they have a concern about tenants, it's not necessarily this behavior. It's about having to evict them, having to go to court with them, having a bunch of noise interruptions, etc., which none of this was saying about this particular tenant. So now let's go back to what the article has to say as far as Airbnb's protections. So the article said, the site's rules for house guests ban sex work and the creation of commercial pornography, photos, or videos, as well as disruptive gatherings. I was gonna say, I think commercial pornography is pretty clear. It's basically whatever you make money on, but there's always been that argument with pornography that some people will consider it art and some people will consider it pornography. So there's a workaround on this, and I'll tell you it in a second. But also, I have an issue here with disruptive gatherings. That's not clear at all. So you need to be way more specific with your tenants and put in something like no more than 10 people can be in the property at any one time, or something along those lines. There's also an option for quiet hours in Airbnb. And so right here, you can see the option for quiet hours. Where you find it is when you're logged in as the host, you go to the listing editor, you scroll down, then you'll see the house rules and they'll be listed on the right side. So here we have the house rules, and directly below that, you'll see a note about commercial photography and filming, and you can click to turn that off. If you are uncomfortable with someone filming anything commercially in your property, you should click this. But as a note, it says commercial photography, not commercial pornography. And so I don't know if the article just misquoted that or what, but the tenant is only going to see commercial photography and filming, and that is going to include not just sex workers, but a whole lot of other people that make their living on the internet. So for instance, I wouldn't be able to rent that place if I was planning on filming content around real estate because it's commercial content. You could allow for commercial photography and filming, but drop your own rule under the additional rules. And a way to get around the pornography versus art argument is to put specific sites. So I just researched this, the top 5 most popular sex worker sites, and they are OnlyFans, Fansly, ManyVids, Chatterbait, and Pornhub. So you could write in a note like no photography or filming of content for OnlyFans, Fansly, ManyVids, Chatterbait, or Pornhub. When I'm working with a new host on their first rental and I'm handling the communication for them, I always, when a new tenant comes in, I always ask the new tenant to confirm that they have read the house rules and that they will comply with them. And the reason why I do that is because someone that plans to do something like this may not confirm that that was what they were planning, but they may just drop off and stop talking to you, which is great because then the problem goes away. So back to this particular article, this woman, Lily, had sex with 100 men in one day in this Airbnb that she had rented in London. No one knew. The host liked her. The neighbors had no complaints. No one heard anything. No one noticed the traffic coming and going. I find that odd. But one of the neighbors, presumably someone who consumes her content, saw Lily's video and reported her, and then it became an issue. So she really wasn't a problematic tenant. She only became an issue after the fact when someone that consumes her content but also lives in the building reported it. Okay, but for you, when you're thinking about how to protect yourself, use those additional rules to put in rules about anything that you really care about. I can think of a lot of rules here, but you also don't want to overdo it because you don't want to turn off potential tenants. So keep these rules to like 4 or 5 or less, or be very careful about how you word them. And then always ask the incoming tenant to confirm that they have read the additional rules, the house rules, and that they're okay with it, and then accept the request. Never accept the request until someone has confirmed that. It also is a strong indicator of how well they communicate and how quickly they'll get back to you. Hope that helped, and happy 2025.